It's exactly 4 o'clock, and Yanamkela to the 3rd episode of PGCE Roadmap for Change. Igama lam nguSiwaphiwe Sibeko uMarhatebe, born and bred in the Eastern Cape. And today we're going to be hosting Wits on this series, and this series intends to empower you to make an informed decision on where you can pursue your PGCE. As I've already said, igama lam nguSiwaphiwe Sibeko, and I am the program officer at the Gerwel Fellowship. And I'm with my favorite colleague, Usamora Sam Menze, and Usamora will be hosting you today. Today we are hosting the University of Witwatersrand, and we are so happy to have them to present their PGCE program with us today. Just so we ground each other. Most of us might know the face on the screen and some might not, but let me take you out of your misery. This is Professor Gerwel, which is the name, our fellowship that is named after. Professor Jakes is a remarkable professor, and Professor Jakes was an academic and anti-apartheid activist. Some of us know the road Gerwel in the Western Cape, which is Cape Town, but he was more than the road that he was named after. Some of us would remember that Professor Jakes was the Director General of Presidency. The late Utamkulu Mandela was in presidency. Also, Professor Jakes was also a high school teacher in Grassy Park in Cape Town as well. And as Gerwel will nurture high school teachers in changing the education landscape in South Africa. Going on, I would want to give you an overview of what has happened and is going to happen in this series this week. On Monday, we hosted our partner university, EUP, and then on Tuesday we hosted the University of Cape Town. And today, maybe one of the reasons why you're here, you want to start at Wits, we are hosting the Witwatersrand today, and tomorrow, in closing the series, we are going to be hosting the University of Johannesburg. So if you are here on this call and you know someone that might benefit, or you know someone that want to be a teacher, please feel free to direct them to our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That goes for everyone who missed the 2 episodes that have been hosted this week, to go to our YouTube channel. If you don't want to miss any news regarding the Gerwel Fellowship, please make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel. I had already said I am only an MC today, and Samora is hosting you. So this ship is going to be driven by Samora. You'll probably hear from me towards the end of the webinar. But if you have any questions, please make sure to drop them on the chat. Please help me welcome Usamora Menze. And Usamora, just so you know, he is an ex-teacher as well, a high school teacher. He taught in Cape Town for most of the time. But I'll give it to you, Sam, to introduce yourself again. Nazindavos, go with that.
Thank you so much, Siwa. Thank you for the amazing introduction. It's a wonderful privilege for me to be the host today. I'm really, really excited for what we have today. And a warm welcome to our amazing guests, and a special welcome to our panelists. We've got Dr. Tanya Baker from Wits, and we've got 2 of our candidate fellows who will be joining us today. Next slide, please. Great. So, yeah, what do I have in store for you today? What's on the menu today? So I'll be bringing in Dr. Tanya Baker, who will be sharing with us a little bit about the application process at Wits. And then we've got 2 of our candidate fellows who are doing that PGCE at Wits. We've got Edward the Vet and Pilangani Sebe, who will also be just giving us a little bit of their experience. And then we'll have a session for questions and answers. As you know, at Gerwel or Gerwel Fellowship, we are very passionate about education and making a wonderful contribution in the education system. And teachers are really at the core of all that we want to achieve at Gerwel. And so you might have experienced this one teacher who's made a big contribution in your life. So I just want to ask you, just drop in the chat, who's your favorite teacher and why that person is your favorite teacher. So if you can just continue and just drop in the chat, we really appreciate that.
Yeah, for now, Sam, we do not have anything. Maybe we can give few seconds. Oh yeah, we just got a message from Michael Maliele. I just hope I pronounced your surname correctly. If I didn't, I am so sorry. And Michael says, it's Mr. Kuyalipi. He was my science teacher. Thank you so much, Michael. Maybe while we're waiting, I can also share who was my favorite teacher. My favorite teacher was Miss Nompumele Longumbe. She was my Isikosa teacher at Viseka High, and Miss Nompumele Longumbe was more than a teacher to us, more like a mother. And Sam, we have something from Utapelo Lisika, and they say Mrs. Baker, who was my English and mathematics. One more, we have a message from Julian. Mine was my geography teacher. He brought the subject alive. And thank you so much to everyone. Back to you, Sam.
Fantastic. Thank you for all your responses, everyone. Really, really appreciate you sharing about your favorite teacher. Now let's just bring the spotlight to our first speaker, Dr. Tanya Becker. Dr. Tanya Becker is the PGCE coordinator at Wits. She's also been a teacher, had been a senior phase and also intermediate phase teacher. And she's also practiced as a remedial practitioner. And so Dr. Tanya Becker, please welcome. Can you bring your voice in, Dr. Tanya Becker?
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you 100%.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to everybody for joining, for being here. I'm really excited to be here and get an opportunity to speak to everybody. So thank you for inviting me. And for the lovely introduction. I am the program coordinator for the PGCE at Wits. And so before I start, can I ask, can we move on to the next slide? Because before I actually start, I want to ask you a question. Does anybody recognize any of these things? If you do, please just put in the chat what you recognize. What are these? Anything. Anything you recognize. Oh, so you're telling me they're brand labels. Can anybody be specific about one of them? What's the apple thing? Has that got to do with fruit? There's a Coca-Cola brand label. And I think most of you would recognize that that apple has got to do with computers and iPhones and things like that, and not necessarily to do with fruit. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and if you saw these, you've just told me you recognize the brand labels quite easily. You recognize the logos. So if you saw these, what would you expect if you saw that M in the red box there? What kind of product would you be expecting? Food, definitely food. And if you saw the lion on the other side, what would you be expecting? Movies, definitely. So you wouldn't expect to go to McDonald's for a movie, and you wouldn't expect to be given a hamburger if you were sitting somewhere and you saw the Lion MGM logo appearing on your screen. So these things are around you all the time. You kind of recognize them. You kind of know what they are. You have particular expectations when you see those logos. And that familiarity and recognition of certain logos or brands is quite significant. Consumer studies have shown that people are far more likely to buy a product if they recognize the brand and if they've had a previous good experience with it, because the expectation that they have then is that they can expect similar quality when they buy another product from that particular brand. And this is something that is important for you to think about when you consider Wits as an institution of possible choice for your PGCE, because Wits is well recognized as being one of the leading universities in South Africa. And for you as prospective education students, it's really worth noting that Wits's education program is consistently ranked as one of the top education programs in the country. In fact, we have a significantly high rate of our education graduates being employed. So we have a very high rate of employability, which is kind of indicating that prospective employers, schools, principals are rating graduates from Wits and have faith in the quality of the graduates that Wits produces. And that's important for you in thinking about your career pathway. The fact that the expectation of Wits has been established that principals, schools have faith in the quality of graduates means that our employment rate is extremely high. And to give you a little bit of insight here, last year, Wits's education PGCE received over 4,500 applications for 250 places. So that should be demonstrating to you that the PGCE qualification is sought after. We have actually more applications than we can accommodate. And it's showing you that the program is desirable. It's a highly competitive program to get into, but it also is challenging and exciting. And I really want to encourage you to think about considering Wits as an institution of choice. So what is it that actually makes the PGCE program at Wits desirable? Well, first of all, let me just take a step back a second. Remember, we were talking about how easy it is to recognize some of these brands, and we have particular expectations when we see these logos. On the flip side of things, that is very often the case when people think about teaching as a profession. Because everybody's had some kind of experience with education, everybody's been taught, people tend to think that they know everything there is to know about what it means to be a teacher. So you'll often hear those kinds of comments that say, anyone can be a teacher. And that's a bit of a misconception at a number of different levels. If you mean that anybody can stand up and talk to a class of learners, then maybe you're right. But if you mean that anyone can work with and transform knowledge and make it understandable and accessible for learners, that anyone can support and nurture and guide development beyond the scope of their subject, that anyone can interact with and build positive relationships, that anyone can excite and motivate or exercise agency and challenge marginalization and exclusion and become an agent of change in the education space, well then no, actually, I would have to disagree that it is something anyone can do. So if we can go to the next slide, please. What do you see there? What is that a picture of? Anybody got any ideas? Put it in the slide, in the message. A frog. Okay. Do you agree? It's a frog. All right. Next, please move on. What do you see now? A horse. Okay, can you see it's the same picture? What's changed? Look at it carefully. It's exactly the same picture. What has changed? The perspective. Thank you, Edward. Definitely. The perspective has shifted. And that is what this PGCE is actually about. It's the same picture. It's a different perspective. And that is what our PGCE program offers. It's a change in perspective from what that everyday common sense understanding of teaching is. That common sense, oh, I know everything about being a teacher. I think it's an easy job to be a teacher. It's shifting that perspective. It's a shift in perspective in terms of your own personal belief in your own ability to make an enormous contribution. A change in perspective in terms of not just making changes that support your own academic and professional journey, but also in enabling you to harness the unique and significant strengths you already bring to the program to enable positive change and shifts in perspective for your learners. So in terms of what you might currently recognize as being a teacher, the PGCE program will seek to deepen your understanding and knowledge so that you can make informed choices as a teacher. The PGCE will also challenge expectations of what it means to teach, moving beyond subject content to fully engaging with what it means to teach diverse learners in the South African context. Additionally, we really hope to empower those kinds of perspective shifts so that you become fully aware of your own potential to change, your own potential to grow, your own potential to develop as a committed teacher, and realize the power that you have in that role to effect change for others. Okay, so can we move on, please? So how do we do that? Well, what I've got here is a very simplified representation of Lee Shulman, who's an educational theorist, representation of the kinds of knowledge that it's important for teachers to have. And we, in our PGCE program, structure our curriculum around this kind of thinking. Lee Shulman suggests that all teachers need to have content knowledge, they need to have knowledge of how to teach, and they need to have knowledge of learners. So the content knowledge is essential because you're teaching a particular subject, but you also need to know how to teach that subject. And I think you will probably all have had some kind of experience of that. The absolutely brilliant lecturer or the absolutely brilliant teacher who knows their subject backwards and forwards, but is so boring to listen to and so difficult to understand because they know their subject, but they don't really know how to make what they know about their subject accessible for the people that they're trying to teach. So we work in the PGCE program with developing that range of knowledge. Now, in terms of the content knowledge, if we can move on, we in the PGCE program know that you already come to us with content knowledge that you've gained in your undergraduate degree. So if you were doing a B.Ed with us from first year to fourth year, we would work on developing your content knowledge as well. But in the PGCE program, we know you coming into us already with sound content knowledge from your undergraduate degree. So we focus in the PGCE, if we can move on, we focus in the PGCE on the other two components, the knowledge of learners and the knowledge of how to teach. And we do that in your curriculum by working with you on educational theory, on subject methodology, and on teaching practice. So the theory, educational theory, gives you insight into how learners develop, how they learn, what supports their learning, what constrains their learning, the different theories of learning, and what the contestations and debates and different perspectives are in terms of what makes it easy for people to learn. And contextually, what challenges, what systemic challenges, what societal challenges, what are those kinds of aspects that impact on learning? So we develop your knowledge of learners through educational theory, and we develop your knowledge of how to teach the subject that you come to us with through what we call subject methodologies. And those are focused at an senior phase and an FET level, because the PGCE at Wits is a senior phase and FET program, which means we're preparing you to teach in a high school. We're preparing you to teach from grade 7 to grade 12. And then, of course, the teaching practice part is where you get the opportunity to go into schools, go into classrooms, and actually try and put what you're learning into practice. Can we move on, please? So if you look at the course components, what you will be covering if you do your PGCE with us is you will be doing theory of education, which is a compulsory core component of your degree. And you do theory of education A and theory of education B. And I'll break that down a little bit for you in a minute. And I'm giving you this information because I think it's important when you're making a choice that you make an informed choice, that you know what it is that you'll be doing. And I think that helps in the decision-making process. You will also be doing an FET subject methodology, that's grade 10 to 12, as well as the aligned senior phase subject for grade 7 to 10. Then you will be doing teaching experience in both your FET phase subject and your senior phase subject. Can we move on, please? As part of your PGCE, you also need to have endorsement courses. You need a conversational competency in a Black African language that is not your home language. And you need basic ICT competence, and we work with you to make sure that you have those endorsements by the end of your PGCE program. Move on, please. As a full-time student, because our PGCE is offered as both a full-time and a part-time option, and I think you would generally be looking at the full-time option. So as a full-time student, there is an option for you to add an additional senior phase subject. So you would have one subject that you can teach from grade 7 to grade 12, but you might have an additional subject that you can teach from grade 7 to grade 9. So as a full-time student, you would have the option, if you have the prerequisite requirement in your undergraduate degree, you would have the option of picking up an additional senior phase subject to add to your qualification. Okay, can we move on, please? So what do I mean by when I talk about an FET subject and its aligned senior phase subject? Well, depending on what you did in your undergraduate degree, you would be, and we'll look at that in a little bit of detail now. In terms of the subjects that you had, you would either be looking to be an accounting, business studies, or economics teacher, or a dramatic arts, visual arts and music teacher, or an English teacher, or geography, history, etc. Can you see the FET subjects that are on, what's it, left, right? My left. I don't know what it comes up on the screen. I think it's still left. On the left-hand side, the FET subjects. And on the right-hand side, I've given you what the aligned senior phase subject is. So let's take an example. You are, based on the subjects in your undergraduate degree, you are going to be, you want as your FET subject, physical science. And if you're doing physical science at an FET subject level, the aligned senior phase level is natural sciences. So the subject that they do for grade 7 to grade 9 is natural science, and then they specialize for grade 10 to 12 in physical science. Same thing, arts and culture, they'll do from grade 7 to grade 9, and then they would choose their subject, either drama or visual arts or music for FET. So when whatever you've qualified for as an FET subject, you will do the aligned senior phase subject as well. Okay, can we move on, please? So, and I'll show you where to get this particular document and the next page of the document when I look at the application process with you. How do you know which of the subjects you're doing? It's unfortunately not a free choice, because remember what I said, we know you come to us with content knowledge already. So we look at what subject you would be able to qualify to teach based on what is in your undergraduate degree. So for example, if you wanted to teach, you wanted to be a high school English teacher, in your undergraduate degree, the entry requirements, can you see I've given you in the first column, it's the FET subject methodology. And in the next column, it says what the entry requirements are. If you wanted to be an English teacher, you would need to have either English 3 in your undergraduate degree, or you would need to have English 1 and one of the other subjects listed there at a level 3, a third year level. Okay, so each of the subjects that you might be considering, it's based on what was in your undergraduate degree, and we've listed for you what those subjects are that would be the prerequisite to qualify to do that particular subject. So unfortunately, you cannot say, you know what, I've got English 3, but I've always wanted to be a maths teacher, so I'm going to do a PGCE and become a maths teacher, if you do not have what the required, the prerequisite subjects are. So if you have a look at this, you'll be able to see from your undergraduate degree which of the FET subjects you would be potentially qualifying for, and that would mean you automatically qualify for the senior phase subject that's aligned the middle column. And then the very last column on the right-hand side, I've given you the requirements for if you wanted to pick up an additional senior phase subject. So you might have the English 3 and you want to do English as your FET with languages as its aligned senior phase, but you might also in your undergraduate degree, for example, have psychology 3. If we move to the next slide, please. You might also have psychology 3 in your undergraduate degree, or psychology 2, and want to do life orientation as an additional senior phase subject. So these requirements are all available for you. I'll show you where to find them. And that just helps you see what it is that you would be needing to have and what you would be able to qualify for in terms of your PGCE teaching subjects. Okay, can we move on, please? All right, so I told you, you do your subject methodology, and you also do theory of education as a core component. And what I've done here, if we can just move on twice, please, so that I can show you. I told you we did theory of education A and theory of education B. These run together across the year. So you have some slots that are for theory of education A and some that are for theory of education B. And I've just given you a brief indication there just to give you a sense of what you could be expecting from that theory of education course. At Wits, we have 4. Our year is divided into 2 semesters. Each semester has 2 blocks. So we have block 1 and block 2 in the first half of the year, and we have block 3 and block 4 in the second half of the year. But in our teaching terms, we actually only teach in block 1, block 2, and block 4, because block 3 is when you would be busy with your teaching experience. Block 3 is when you would be going into schools to do your teaching experience. So in block 1, for example, for theory of education A, you would be doing a course called Becoming a Teacher. In the next block, you would do curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment. And in the last block, you would be doing being a teacher and law and policy. And simultaneously for theory of education B, you would be looking at psychology of education, inclusive education, and philosophy of education. So those are the kinds of topics that are covered in theory of education. Can we move on, please? I've given you here an example of a timetable. Now, obviously, this is just an example, and I'm not saying, and if anybody tells me I told you this is the timetable for next year, I'm going to moan at you, because this is just an example of the way your timetable might be structured. You can see that the PGCE is a demanding program. It's a full program. You are busy the majority of the day, every day. And this is obviously for when we are on campus. Currently, we are not having contact lectures on campus because of the COVID conditions. So we are working mainly online at the moment. And we have a fantastic new learning management system that we rolled out at the beginning of this year to support that kind of engagement. Yes, it is a new system. So we have unfortunately been learning as we go. But you will see that the learning management system we use is a Canvas platform. We've called it Owazi for Wits, and it is a system that brings up on your dashboard every single subject that you are registered for. You go into your subject, you find modules where your readings, recorded lectures, everything you need is loaded per session that has to be covered. There's a conference facility when live lectures are being, well, not live lectures, but live online lectures are being done. There's chat functions, there's all sorts of engagement and different things, and everything happens on that platform. And it's an easy to navigate platform. And our teaching and learning divisions do offer training sessions, and at the beginning of the year you would be invited to join those training sessions to support you. They also have a lot of sending out PDFs of how to log on and how to do particular things. So there's a lot of support for everybody in terms of using that particular platform. Thank you. Can we move on, please? All right, so let's get to the actual application. And how would you go about doing an application? I've included here the link. All applications happen online. So you would need to follow this link and go to the site. And then I've just copied from the site the kinds of tabs that you would have and be able to find. If you clicked on the tab that says entry requirements there, it would bring up that table that I showed you with what the prerequisite subjects are for any teaching subject that you're interested in. If you clicked on the university application process, you would see that there's a step-by-step guide that's provided there for how to complete that online application. And then once you've looked at that step-by-step guide, there's a little link that you click on that takes you straight into starting to complete the application. The biggest thing that I want to just make sure that you take away from this if you do decide to apply to Wits is it is absolutely essential. Please, 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 please. It is essential that you upload the necessary supporting documentation. Your application cannot be processed unless you have uploaded your academic transcript. It is your academic transcript that is looked at. Once you've submitted your application, the academic transcript is reviewed. The reason for reviewing your academic transcript is to identify which of those prerequisite subjects you actually have, and that then determines which division your application is sent to for consideration. So if you had the English 3, it would be sent to the languages division for consideration. If you had the maths prerequisites, it would be sent to the maths division. So it's really essential that you have uploaded your academic transcript. The biggest problem that we are finding is that a lot of applications get stuck in the system because people complete the application, but they don't upload the necessary academic transcript and documents. And so it gets stuck. It sends you an email to say you haven't uploaded what's needed, but very often there's a delay in you seeing that or getting it. And it makes the process cumbersome for you, and you start feeling frustrated because there's no movement on your application. But if you upload everything as you need to, be ready with it, read that guide. It tells you beforehand what you're going to need to have. Make sure you've got that stuff. And when you start completing your application online, you would then have it ready to upload so that your application can actually immediately start moving through the process. Once you've done the application, you get a student portal, you get a student number, and with your student number, you can access your student portal and you can track the progress of your application through the system if you do that up front. But what I've also added for you at the bottom is an email address for Janet Ditlorpo, who is our absolutely phenomenal administrative assistant for the PGCE. And she is really, really wonderful. And I've given you her email address because if you are getting stuck with that online application, or you are getting stuck with knowing what to do, you can always email our administrative assistant and she will assist you and guide you through and help you get that application in. But so I've included it there for you. And I think that's about the biggest thing I can tell you about the application is just make sure you upload all the necessary documents as you do it, please. Okay, and I think that's just about it from me. So let me see now. I think I'm supposed to look at perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Firstly, thank you so much for your presentation and just in how detailed you went through the whole process there. There's a question from Kolani Makubele. He says, Kolani says that I've got a BSc in maths and had done IT and CAT, but I don't see IT or CAT on the FET subjects that you listed.
There actually is. You can do IT and CAT. I actually need to have a look at that and see why that is not on the application, but please feel free to, I actually think it might have been on the second page. If not, just feel free, please, to contact me. By the way, I don't know if you saw that when I had the email address for Janet Ditlorpo, all Wits email addresses is first name. So in my case, Tanya, full stop, surname, in my case, Becker, at wits.ac.za. And if I am incorrect and that ICT and CAT is not on the second page of that entry requirements, please just email me and I'll direct you to what those requirements are for the subject. Okay.
Right. So IT and CAT are being offered.
You can
for
do that, yes.
FET. Right. Thank you. And then there's another question from Freddy Nyezi. His question is asking, is there a specific number of credits in a subject that you're looking for at Wits? This is for people who have not studied at Wits in particular.
You need to have, it's not, so your credits are typically an undergraduate degree with 360 credits in total. But what is most significant for us is looking at the level of the subject that you had in your undergraduate degree. That's the prerequisite for your PGCE program. So for example, it needs to be at a third year undergraduate. So it's actually an NQF level 7 is what we're looking for some of the subjects. But what you need to be worrying about is having a look at those entry requirements and saying, hang on, do I have the subject as indicated on that list that would support me to have the prerequisite requirement for that particular subject? And in some cases, there's a slightly unique combination. So you might, for example, I'm just using the English as an example because it's still fresh in my mind. We read it a few seconds ago. It was English 1 and one of the following subjects at a level 3. And you might have an additional subject that's not listed there, but that because you have an English 2 and something else on a level 2, the department might still consider your application for that. So if you're uncertain, it's really still worth your while to put your application in and let it be directed to the correct subject experts to have a look at if you've got that slightly unusual combination. Okay, but typically if you finished an undergraduate degree and you have any of those subjects, you've got enough credits. Okay.
There's one more question from Daniel. His question is, do you offer research module for PGCE?
No, there's no research module in the PGCE program. Your PGCE program is packed. It is so full in terms of what it is that you have to do in that 1 year of your PGCE program. But what the PGCE does do is it gives you the possibility of moving on to do an honors in education, which is where you would be doing a research project. So your PGCE would then allow you entry into an honors, and you could follow that up with your master's, and you could follow that up with a PhD. Okay, and we do encourage that because research is really important, but within the PGCE space, it is such a packed program. And I think the people who are going to speak to you in terms of their experience of the program will tell you it is a demanding course. And so there is not a research component in the PGCE, although there's a lot of observational thinking around what you're seeing happening in classrooms and schools, and a lot of critical engagement, which is almost laying a foundation for being able to do research projects later in terms of your engagement with thinking critically about issues through your course assignments and your essays and those kinds of things that you need to complete. Okay.
Thank you. Seems to be quite a number of questions coming in, Dr.
That's
Baker.
fantastic. That's brilliant, because that tells me you didn't fall asleep. So thank you for that.
There's one coming from Tembelani. Is the process the same for international students?
The process is different for international students, because what we need to do first is many international students are not coming with qualifications that we need to take it through the qualifications framework first to establish equivalency of the qualifications that are being brought from an international space to determine what their subject or what subjects are coming to us from an international space, and what our qualifications framework counts as an equivalent in our terms. So what we would first do then is we would direct that to, we work with SACE, who helps us look at those qualifications and then gives us this is equivalent to. So for example, we had an international student doing the PGCE, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, who had come to us with a music qualification from the UK, and the qualifications framework equivalency advised us that that qualification was actually equivalent to an MEd or to a master's in music, and we were able to work then with how that translated to what needed to be done in the PGCE. Okay.
Thank you. I think I'm going to read one more question and then I will move on to our candidate fellows. This question is from Temwani. The question is, firstly, they thank us for the presentation, or thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask for help. Last year, I didn't receive numeric results on my transcript. So it was only a pass or fail. And this was a decision that was taken by the university. This decision was made in response to the pandemic. At the moment, I also don't have my results for my first semester this year. Will this be a problem? And what could I do in this case?
Okay, so I actually need to have a little bit more information there, because last year's results, the question is sounding to me like last year was maybe a second year of the undergraduate degree.
Okay.
And so it's a third year, your final year's transcript that you would be uploading. You don't have your results yet for your first semester, but you should be almost, it's mid-year now, so you should be able to, after I'm not sure if you've written exams or if exams have been postponed because of the conditions, but you should at some point in the next month to 6 weeks be getting some kind of indication of what your mid-year results are. And you would then apply with that. Remember, the application is open all the way till the end of September. So you would wait until you got your mid-year results for this year. Don't worry about last year's, because we would want to see what subjects you're doing at a third year level. And because you are not, if it is your third year and you have not completed yet, you would get, if you were accepted, you would get what we call a provisional acceptance, which says, yes, based on these mid-year results that we are seeing, we prepare to provisionally offer you a place. And if you maintain those results at the end of the year, that provisional acceptance will become a firm offer. Okay, so that's how we would work with you if you don't have an already completed undergraduate degree. We would work on your mid-year results from this year and look at offering you a provisional space in the same way that current matriculants can put in applications and they offered a provisional space based on, we have to see the final matric results before we can turn it into a firm offer. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Becker. And if the audience have got any more questions for Dr. Becker, just post them in the chat and she will respond to that. And right now I would like to bring, as I mentioned earlier on, that we've got 2 candidate fellows from the University of Wits. We've got Pilangani, and we also have Edward De Wet. Both of them are doing senior phase and FET life orientation as their subject methods. And I think I'll start off with Pilangani. Pilangani, would you please come through? And
okay.
During your application process at Wits, and also just your general experience of the PGCE at Wits.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much to Samora and the rest of the audience for giving me this opportunity. So like Samora said, my name is Pilangani Tsebe, and I am a PGCE student at Wits, specializing in life orientation, senior phase, and FET. And yeah, applying at Wits for me was actually a very smooth and less stressful application process, considering the fact that, I was applying during the pandemic, which for some other people was actually a hassle, but then I got a very different experience. The process itself was actually very easy, because the application platform at Wits is actually user-friendly, and it also accommodates everyone, including people that are applying for the first time. And yeah, you have things like the Kudu bot, which is available for you 24/7 if you ever have any questions regarding the application process. And we also have the Wits School of Education team that is forever hands-on to provide us with, the smooth transition while you go through your application process and the registration process. And yeah, moving on to the tips that I would like to give anyone who is a first-time applicant is that make sure that, you apply on time, because there's so many applications that Wits receives yearly, and like Dr. Becker mentioned earlier on. So you actually need to also make use of the Wits website, which provides you with the information regarding the closing dates. Moving to my PGCE experience. At first, I was so anxious because I was moving from a different study field to a new study field. But finding yourself around, passionate lecturers that are more passionate about transforming the education system of South Africa was actually an amazing, experience, because they are forever helpful and very supportive. They guide you in the process of dealing with your academics, despite the course itself being very demanding. The staff is forever helpful. And, like Dr. Becker also mentioned, that it is a very packed course itself, but then with the support system that we receive, it actually breaks down everything, including the Ulwazi system that gives you a to-do list to make everything more simpler. It gives you like a schedule on how you need to work around your assignments and tasks. And so, the last advice that I'd like to give to anyone who's considering doing a PGCE at Wits is that is the best choice that you could ever make for yourself, because you are definitely going to be exposed to, a new different space, and a space that actually stimulates you into becoming an expert teacher in the future. And do make use of the knowledge and support that you get from your lecturers. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Philangani. Wow, that was incredible. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And let's bring in Edward the Vet. Come through, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, the Vet. And just quickly, very briefly, just share with us your experience of doing your PGCE at Wits. How's that been for you? The kind of support you're getting from your lecturers?
Yeah. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for the opportunity. I have to agree with Philangani. I think the Wits application process is extremely smooth. There were really no hiccups. The biggest tip I have for everyone is, if you can read, you can do it. You read where you click and you follow the prompt, takes you where you need to be. And it's really a very smooth and easy process in terms of the application. And as you go through the process, Wits is very informative in terms of letting you know what's going on. And once you get accepted, also informative in terms of the documents and information they send through for you to register online on the platform of Wits self-service for the learners. Very smooth. Once again, if you can read, you can do it. And then moving on to the PGC program, ladies and gents and others, I am tired. It is a very demanding program. It is something that you definitely need to keep tabs on. I'm a little irritated with COVID, because this is a course that I feel I would have enjoyed more, is probably the wrong word, but a little more if I had the interaction in the classroom. Because as calm as Dr. Becker is at this stage, we just recently submitted our examination for her inclusive education part of theory of education. And I'm still thinking about what she made me think about and read and write on. And I want to engage with people on this topic and hear what others have to say, because I think if you're pursuing a PGCE, it is a passion. You want to be a mentor and a role model, and you want to change lives through what you do. And I think that's just, with COVID, a little prohibited in this regard. But otherwise, like was mentioned before, Ulwazi is a platform that has your to-do list. Everything is uploaded there, so you can, at this stage, we go through everything at our own pace. But the lecturers are very supportive. If you ever need anything, they're very open in terms of communication by email or otherwise. It is an enjoyable process, and it makes you think, it makes you doubt sometimes, but it'll be worth it at the end. I like to be challenged, and this has definitely been one of the great challenges of 2021. And I look forward to going and implementing what I've learned and all of this background knowledge that I didn't have about education, and implementing that into the space and make sure that there's an inclusive environment and education for everyone to thrive in South Africa.
Oh, thank you so much, Edward. There's a question that came through. This question was directed at Philangani, but I think, Edward, you can also respond to it if you want to. It says, how is JGF supporting your studies during your PGCE?
Okay. Well, the JGF team, I actually have, a program officer whom is actually, around today, which is Siwa. And having a program officer is actually the best thing in the world, because they just, help you deal with the weight that you have on your shoulders. So each and every single day after submitting an assignment that I was not totally sure about it, it's just one call away. You call your program officer, you just take everything out and just explain to them that, oh my God, this went on the wrong way. And, the JGF space also reminds you of why was the reason behind you starting this PGCE course, and they are forever there, very supportive. And the fact that you always have that, why did I start with this process? It always keeps you going, no matter how difficult the course may be. And yeah, we also do have tutors provided. So if maybe you're struggling with a certain module, you can always request for a tutor that the JGF team does, cover for. And then you just have your personal tutor that actually helps you go through whatever module that seems difficult. Yeah, I hope I did answer your question.
Thank you very much, Philangani. Again, a very just want to thank Dr. Becker. I know at this time there's a lot of things happening at the university, very busy. And so for taking out your time to be with us today, thank you so much for dedicating that amount of time to be here. And to you, Philangani and Edward, thank you so much for just availing yourself to come and share your experience and some tips to our audience. And so in that, I would like to hand back to Siwa to close the session for us. Thank you, Siwa.
And goes to Dr. Baker and our candidate fellows, Philangani and Edward, which happen to be my candidate fellows. I'm so proud. So because we are JSFL, and I would like to quickly tell you about our eligibility. I only have imizuzo, maybe you need to do that. So you need to have South African identity, your academic results, intention to study PGCE at our partner universities, which is UJ, UP, Wits, and UCT. You need to want to become a teacher. So we will coach you for the first 2 years of your teaching as a newly qualified teacher. And you will need to be under the age of 30 before you apply for the fellowship. Next slide, Sihle. Thank you so much. JGF and Wits are two separate institutions. So you will need to apply to Wits and apply to JGF for you to be funded by JGF and study at Wits. We do not have any influence on your application and what happens to your application at Wits. Please do note that we have recently changed our closing date to the 30th of July, which gives you more time to view applications. And please do spread the word to everyone else that would want to be a teacher or you think that they would benefit to this information. From me, Usiwa, and the team at JGF, thank you very much for joining us. Do remember that we are hosting episode 4, and we will be hosting the University of Johannesburg tomorrow. Same time, same place. The links are on our social media platforms. Thank you very much.